Hello everyone, and welcome to Friday evening's adult story time. This Friday I'm going to be reading a short story that I wrote myself. It's called A Faux Pas of Youthful Naivety. Peeking out the car window with both hands upon the door, the young boy looks on as the vibrant red, orange, and yellows of the trees flicker through his reflection in the window. His ma dressed him in a powder blue wool suit and tie that morning, making it look as though a cloud is floating among the trees as they drive by. Hushed murmurs can be heard from the front seat, and the boy's eyes avert from the window. Pa is driving, and Ma is leaning in towards his shoulder with a serious expression on her face as she talks. A golden curl falls from behind her left ear, and she brushes it back irritably. The boy edges forward in his seat to get a better listen, but Ma notices and sternly tells him to sit back. She's been in rare form ever since earlier that morning when Pa told the boy his Uncle Earl died and they were all going to something called a viewing today. Pa begins to slow their '68 Chevy station wagon, and the boy curiously peers out the window again with interest. There's a break between the trees and tiny gray pebbles line a path to their right. Pa turns, and a gate, appearing to be made of black iron lace, welcomes them onto the lane with open eeriness. The lane is hugged with naked, brittle cornfields, and what appears to be a house can be seen up ahead. Years have manipulated the once white brick facade, now a gray film of age and deterioration wrap itself around the somber Victorian. Remembering his ma's ill temper, the boy keeps his thoughts to himself, but wonders if this is where Uncle Earl lives. The station wagon creeps around the rear of the house, where several cars are haphazardly parked upon the field. Pa follows their lead and parks among them. With haste, his ma and Pa exit the car and make their way back to the front of the house. The boy hesitantly follows behind them, taking in his surroundings. Faded wooden lattice lines the side of the house. Dried vines still entwined within, hanging on out of habit instead of life. As he turns the corner, Ma and Pa are already waiting for him on the porch. He glances up to take in the house in its entirety before mounting the few cement steps. The boy also notices the second-story windows above as a flick of red velvet crosses the left window, making it look as though the house were winking at him. Startled, the boy runs to his pa, grabbing his hand and leaning into him for consolation, as the trio walk through the stained glass paneled front door. When the boy enters the front door, his nose is met with the smell of musty, stale linens and floral antiseptic. He pinches his nose closed with his thumb and forefinger with a grimace. Noticing, Ma leans down with an angry face, and the boy immediately drops his hands to his side. From the foyer, two French doors can be seen to their left, a large entrance to their right, and a grand staircase in front with a hallway running parallel. Hues of dark mahogany and red velvet coat the entranceway from floor to ceiling, forcing the atmosphere to become bleak. The boy follows his parents into the room to the right, but is halted by a wall of people in black, talking amongst themselves. Ma turns towards the boy and grabs his hand as he begins maneuvering through the black sea. Several people deep, an old woman with short, tight gray curls bends down and pinches the boy's left cheek. She releases his tender skin fairly quickly and begins chatting with Ma and Pa. The boy rubs his sore cheek in annoyance and moves behind Pa to escape any future grasps. The adult conversation trails off as Pa excuses himself, and the boy watches as his back is swallowed by the surrounding blackness. He follows him with curiosity. When the boy reaches his pa, he is surprised to see him standing in front of a long, shiny pine box with gold handles on either end. The box is open and is sitting on a table lined with an antique white lace. Cautiously but curiously, the boy walks up to stand beside his pa. The box is just above the boy's eye level, so he lifts to his tiptoes to peek inside. After discovering its contents, he immediately drops back down on his heels and quickly steps away. Pa takes notice and places a reassuring hand on the boy's back and nudges him closer. Complying, the boy moves forward and lifts to his tiptoes again to peer inside the box. The boy had never seen Uncle Earl before. His skin looks as though it is made of a pale-colored wax. He has deep wrinkles and saggy cheeks with an overly large nose. Pa turns and walks away, leaving the boy to linger alone with his great-uncle. Quizzically, the boy quickly pokes a finger at his uncle's face and pulls it back, examining the finger to see if it had left a mark. Nothing. He touched his face again, wiggling his nose with one finger. With his finger still on his uncle's nose, the boy glances upwards towards his closed eyes. The small, curious finger slides up the nose bridge, lifting one eyelid at a time. Alarmed at what he sees, the boy quickly pushes the thin flaps of skin back down. Before the boy gets a chance to open his uncle's mouth, he jumps at the sound of a shrill scream from behind. Turning around in alarm, he sees another old lady with a short white and gray bob crying. She has her hands to her mouth, and she is staring right at him in horror. He looks around and notices everyone else is looking at him too. Ma makes her way through the onlookers and submerges from the wall of black. Her eyes evaluate the situation and expand within their sockets, causing the whites of her eyes to pierce through the room's dimness. She immediately rushes over to the boy and fiercely grabs his arm, pulling him over to the sobbing old lady. Assuming he did something he wasn't supposed to do by the way his ma was acting, the boy whispers an apology to the woman and ashamedly stares down at the floor. Ma embarrassingly rushes through an apology of her own and excuses herself as she hurries through the crowd, still having a tight grip on the boy's arm. She pulls him out into the hall and plops him on a velvet wing-back sofa beneath the stairwell. Too furious to speak, Ma stares down at the boy in frustration and annoyance. Without the ability to formulate an intelligent yet stern sentence, she turns on her heel and rejoins the room of darkness, leaving the boy alone in the foyer. Unbeknownst to the boy, only 15 minutes have passed, but it has felt like hours, and his ma still has not come back out to get him. He starts to become restless and begins fidgeting, bouncing up and down and rocking back and forth. He then decides to lie down, belly up on the couch, placing his hands on his chest, just like he had seen his Uncle Earl positioned in the other room, and closes his eyes. His hearing becomes heightened without sight, as a clack, clack, clickety-clack is heard. Someone was entering the foyer. The boy shuts his eyes tighter, hoping to become invisible to the room's intruder. The friction between shoe and hardwood seems to come to a stop near the end of the sofa, and the boy can hear what sounds to be a muffled chuckle. He slightly opens one eye to peer at the recipient. It's Pa. The boy quickly shuts his eye again as more footsteps click, click, click quickly across the floor. A brief murmur can be heard, and the boy recognizes his ma's hearty laugh. He opens his eyes to both parents in an embrace, laughing and staring down at him, and he smiles back with youthful naivety to his ma's change in demeanor, as they remember that where death reigns, life prevails in humor, and one's youth doesn't last forever. Thank you all for joining me this Friday evening for our adult story time. If you have any suggestions on what you would like me to read next Friday, leave a comment below. Thanks, guys. Bye!